Hi everyone, I'm back with a Friday garden tour. As you can see, things have gotten exponentially larger. Pardon my voice and probably breaks for coughing. I've been taken down with the summer plague, so I'm going to do my best here, but it might be kind of a quiet tour. So first here you can see our flowers. There's sunflowers on the left have really shot up this last week. They're probably about, approaching 2 feet tall at this point. We haven't thinned them, we've just left them like they are. I'll move over here a little bit so you can see better. But if you look, the flowers are looking great. They've really bushed out more. You have some gorgeous ones kind of tucked around each other. All kinds of colors of balsam. You can see their little flowers peeking through. I think there was even a white one down here, which I'd never seen a white one before, so that was pretty interesting. Here's one. Here's a white one. But they're looking great. There's one with very few leaves that looks really pretty. So yeah, lots of flowers. Oh, here's a really pretty white one. You can see that. So they're looking great. The borage is really looking awesome. Flowers are starting to fade at this point. Starting to make some seed pods. You can see there's a little pollinator right there doing its job. All right, and then we'll look over here at the green beans, and I'll show you. Well, look at the cilantro. It has bushed out and gone a little crazy. Cilantro loves heat and dry, so it's perfectly happy right now. We are starting to see some issues with kind of a drought stress, so we haven't had the rain that a lot of the other parts of the state have had. So you can see there's kind of like a bald patch right in there. That's where the plants are actually falling over to the sides. And you would say, oh, it's because of weight. But the beans actually haven't gotten that much bigger than they were last week. So let's see if I can show you. So see, like this one, if I can get it where you can see it. See that one right there? Gotten a little longer, but they haven't filled out. So I think the reason they're falling over like that is because they need water. So I've hooked our drip irrigation back up. I've set it to run 2 hours every night. Really, it should be 6 hours, but I can't justify doing that right now. We'll start with 2 and see how that does. The ground is slightly damp right now. We did have a little bit of rain yesterday, maybe about 1/10. Oh, look, a Japanese beetle. You see him? That is a Japanese beetle. So we'll get our beetle traps out and take care of that. Oh, look, here's a good stand of beans right there. Can you see them? And they're about, well, that's my finger, so getting pretty big. So I don't need to walk all the way down there to show you that these are green beans, and they're tall. Butter beans, looking a little worse for wear. I think, again, needing some water. They're full of blooms, and I did see, let me see if I can find it for you. You know I'm not very good at that, but I did see a teeny tiny butterbean pod, and it was super cute. And I should have pulled the camera out and filmed it right when I saw it. Where was it? It was super, super cute. Let's see. I'll find it. So we've got pollinators here as well. That's an interesting little wasp thing. I don't know if you saw him before he flew away. Here's the beginnings of one. So if you can, I don't know if you can see that. There's the beginnings of a pod. I don't know if it'll focus on it. But that's the beginnings of a butterbean pod, for those who were curious. And in the gap, you'll remember I planted some zinnia seeds. Do have a few sprouting. Not well. I think it's probably too hot and too dry. Maybe now that I have the irrigation on, maybe they'll come back. Peanuts are looking great. You can see it, this one. Full of blooms down in there. Looking nice and healthy. They are at this point starting to make actual peanuts underground, which is awesome. It'll still be a long time before we harvest them. They'll actually be one of the last things we'll harvest from this garden. So when you plant peanuts, make sure you can dedicate that space to them, because they'll be there pretty much your whole season. Same thing with cotton. It's a longer growing. You can see they've gotten much bigger, so they're about at knee height now, so almost 2 feet tall. And they're looking great. Lots of grass in there. I've pulled some of it, but like I said, being sick this week, a lot of things get out of hand. But you'll notice these sweet potatoes we planted last week, they are looking great. So these center 2 leaves, these darker ones, are actually the new leaves. So we've had probably, I would say probably at least these 4 are new leaves from last week. So they're really happy, they're doing well. Potatoes are all finishing up and falling over and curling up. Talked a little bit with my family about what to do about our potato bug problem. They're not bothering us right now because the plants have done all they're going to do in producing potatoes. But I would like to put all the debris in a pile and burn it at the end of the season. So we'll see if that's how we go. Or there was a suggestion to put them in trash bags and throw them away. There was a suggestion to compost them. So we'll see what happens. I'll let you know. Hopefully I win, but I'm not always victorious. So here comes the sad project for the week. These were beautiful zucchini plants. And there still are 2 beautiful ones behind them and one over here that look great. So I don't know. I assume this is a squash vine borer problem because I don't see squash bugs killing the plant like that. Interestingly though, I don't see any critters. Oh, there's a bug. That looks like a dead squash bug, which is interesting. And a spider and some ants. Oh, there's a squash bug. There's a nymph. Okay, so maybe it was squash bugs. So these I will probably leave as trap plants, at least for right now. And a trap plant is a plant that you just let the bugs kill. So the bugs will just eat on that and hopefully leave my other ones alone until I can come back with, I've seen it suggested to try some dish soap in water and with a sprayer, and I'm going to give that a try and see what happens. And I'll keep you updated. So if you look, so my parents have been coming out and helping with picking since I haven't been around. There's a massive zucchini, so that's probably the length of my forearm. I think there was another one over here actually. Yep, there's one over there. We'll see if we can get over there better. So definitely have some squash to pick. You can see down in there. So far, the squash bugs are leaving these alone. which is great because, oh, look, 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 look. There's an adult squash bug right there. He's running. All right, buddy. Got your number. So, back to my giant zucchini before I get distracted again. There's another giant one right there. But no worries, they still eat the same. What I like to do is kind of core them out and don't use that center seedy part just because it's kind of, I don't know, kind of spongy and not really a pleasant texture. But the outside's still perfectly fine. So, going back to squash bugs, my thought process on these little ones, this little one right here, and I have 4 of those, is to move them all the way over there where you can see the borage sticking up. Because I've read that borage deters squash bugs. So, my thought process is if I dig these up while they're small and get them away from where I know there are squash bugs and put them beside something that's supposed to keep the squash bugs away, and then also spray them with the soapy water that's supposed to keep the squash bugs away, maybe I'll succeed. So, that's my thought process. We will see what happens. I will keep you updated. And I will show you when I go to make that soapy solution. I'll make a little video of that and show you how I do that. And I can even show you how I transplant these little guys. If you want to see that, I imagine you know how to transplant, but just in case you don't. So I'm going to talk, let's see here. Next we get to are these watermelons, and you can see they are running really well. So running just means that they are starting to put off these long shoots, and that's what's going to have your watermelon on it. And actually, this one is getting ready to bloom. So that may be a bloom pretty soon, which then may turn into a watermelon. But what I wanted to show you, this little one right here is actually a different variety. That's the only one that survived from seed, and it should be a bush sugar baby. So we'll see if it survives and if that's actually what it is. All of these other watermelons are going to make large watermelons, like your 20-pound watermelons. Sugar baby's more like a 4-pounder. So they'll be obvious in difference. So, moving forward, the marigolds are looking great. If you can see that row, that's all of these right here with the orange flowers. And I planted those to help out my tomato plants. And then in between those, there's places where I transplanted some basil. So you'll see spots with basil. That's also really good for tomatoes, as well as you can use it in your tomato recipes. But it's a great pest deterrent as well. So it's looking great. It looked pretty pitiful when I transplanted it, but looking pretty good. Look at this beautiful marigold. So my mom and I are very allergic to marigolds. So it's funny that we plant them, but if I touch them, like get them on my arms or anywhere on my skin, I will itch like crazy and get a rash. So I try not to just touch them. They're just for looks. So if you look at the peppers, these first ones were my jalapenos, and you can see, hopefully you can, that they're loaded with peppers. But the exciting thing is that my poblanos are getting themselves together. Like, I probably can pick that one. And maybe some of these others, which is super exciting. I'll bring you down here. These are supposed to be pimentos. I feel like they're really big, but I don't know. Never grown them before. There are purple peppers, which are these. They're just your regular old bell pepper. They're not going to be hot, but they are purple. So I have 4 of those, and then these last ones are supposed to be red bell peppers when they finally get themselves situated. So I'm going to jump over the peppers where it's easier to walk. and show you. Look at these tomatoes. I don't know if you can see. So, let me get, look at those. Loads and loads of tomatoes. I'm certain I'll have some to pick today as I go through. I need to stake them up better. But, like said, being sick, it's been really difficult. It looks like, though, that we've had some straight line wind. So if you look, they're all leaning the same direction. They've all fallen over the same way, which makes me think with one of these bad storms, we got some wind straight from above that just knocked them over. That's not uncommon with these bad storms. I will say it makes it a little bit easier to spot the ripe tomatoes. So these little yellow things are Sungolds, and the yellow is the ripe color. So I'll be picking some of those. Looks like actually quite a few. If you look over here, we'll be picking some of those here in a minute. And then if you look here, this is my little corn experiment. So these are the little Asian baby corns, and they have not tasseled yet. It does look like they're maybe thinking about it. So if you look down in there, looks like they're kind of getting themselves together. So they surprisingly are going to tassel after my big corn, which is excellent, just so long as they don't tassel at the same time. So here's the exciting story. These are the blooms on our Silver Queen corn. So if you were around last week, you heard me talk about how once they tassel, 1 week later, you'll see silks. So these are your silks, and you don't want to touch them or mess with them at this point. But all these little sparkly looking pieces that are flying around in the sun are little individual flowers. I don't know if you can see too well with this camera, but they're little flowers full of pollen. And as the wind shakes them, it's shaking the pollen down onto these sticky silks. And so everywhere that you have the silks, you'll have an ear corn. So at this point, like I said, you don't want to touch those silks. You don't want to mess with them. In about, I don't know, maybe a week, I'll come and start treating them for cornworms, the worms that like to get at the very end of the corn and destroy that little end of corn. I'm going to do an experiment with that. I've never really tried to deter the worms before. Pretty much just grown enough and cut that end off and let it go. But I'm going to try a couple things and see if we can do a little bit better. But if you look, it's actually really pretty with the wind blowing. I don't know if you can see really well, but it's pretty cool. And the gorgeous silks, there's one in the sunshine. This looks like a bunch of blonde hair. And the cucumbers, which you remember me trying to kill, are looking so much better. Let me get from this side. They are looking so much better now. And the little cucumber that was here last week, look, it's gotten about 4 inches long, which is awesome. And there it has a new one right there. So not only did I not kill it, but I might have actually made it do better. So far, no sign of pests for these guys, but they are susceptible to the same squash bugs that squash have trouble with. So we'll have to wait and see what happens down there. I probably will come down and treat these as well the same way, just to be on the safe side. And I just talked about the corn, but I wanted to show you where and why I think we had some straight line wind. So I don't know if you can see now. So when I got here earlier, all of this section of corn was leaning this way. And it actually was not only leaning, it was just as far as this one right here, where it was all the way really over and laying on the ground. So with corn, if wind knocks it over, you generally will give it 12 to 24 hours to stand itself back up, and you don't mess with it. But this was so severe that they weren't going to be able to stand themselves back up, especially now that they're tasseling and have that extra weight at the top. So I stood them back up and pushed some dirt to their roots, and hopefully they will take and they'll stand back up and be okay. Some of them I couldn't do. Some of them were actually broken, but hopefully I saved them. Was probably about half a row right in the center there, which makes me think we had a downdraft that just went right on top of it, like an elephant sitting on it, because it doesn't look like any kind of pest pressure. It doesn't look like raccoon. A raccoon's not going to eat unripe corn. There's nothing there yet, and they would have had to have gotten through the electric fence. So I think it had to have been wind. So we'll see what happens. We'll come back next week and see how they're doing. Sunflowers are getting pretty tall. You'll see one back there is really tall. They're doing great. You can see a bunch of them right here in the middle. Also fell over. There's some corn that's fallen over. When the corn fell, it made a lot of these sunflowers fall also. Hopefully they'll pick themselves back up. Sunflowers aren't super good at that, so they may be losses. But you can see, so see this corn laying on the ground? And you can see back there that it's actually just laid over from the bottom of the stalk. And you'll see there's some back over there too. So these are probably losses. But it's okay. We planted a bunch, so hopefully we'll have plenty. Have enough time in the season, we can probably plant again, so we might do that. If you look, flowers over here are looking great. Some more pretty stalks. These are balsam, again for those who weren't here last week. It's an old cottage garden flower. Also have some pink straw flower, which is interesting. I've never seen pink before. Usually it's blue. So there's another pretty white one. We got a lot of white ones, which is interesting. So those were saved seeds, and I don't remember seeing white before, but somehow I got white now, so that's neat. So lots of pretty flowers. Lots and lots and lots of pretty, which is great. More pollinators, and more pretty things to look at rather than weeds. Look, a pretty solid white Cosmo. It's an unusual one too. And here's one that was pretty before it started dying, but it has these pretty purple tips on it, which is interesting. But anyways, that's where we stand. Again, I apologize for the voice and the sniffles and everything. It's been a rough week, but everything's looking great out here. I'm going to get to harvesting those squash and zucchini and some tomatoes, and probably some of these peppers, and call it a day. But thanks for coming along. Thanks for hanging out. If you like what you see, if you would, please subscribe. That'd be great. Hit the like button so more people will see my video. And leave any kind of comments that you might have. Good, bad, indifferent suggestions. If you have any better suggestions for any sort of pests or problems that you saw during the video, I'd really appreciate it. And now that the dogs are barking, I was going to leave you with a nice, quiet, peaceful shot of the garden. But between the dogs and the people coming home from work, it's pretty noisy. maybe we'll get a few seconds here.